You learned to read a room before you ever learned to read a book. You could feel a mood shift from the next room. From a sigh. From the sound of a key turning in the door. And somewhere in all of that, quietly, without anyone ever noticing, you stopped being a child. Nobody clapped. Nobody worried. They praised you for it. They called you mature, wise beyond your years, so easy to raise. They never once knew those words were describing a wound. I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because I think a part of you has been waiting a very long time to hear what I am about to say. It was never your job to carry all of that. You were just a child. This is Blissful Journey, and today we are going to talk about the children who had to grow up too fast. Why you still can't rest. Why being taken care of feels almost unbearable. Why you keep attracting people who only take. And slowly, gently, we are going to help you set down a weight you have been carrying since before you can even remember. What happened to you has a name. Psychologists call it parentification. It is what happens when a child is handed a role they were never meant to hold. The calm one, the fixer, the little adult in a house that needed one. Maybe you have never had a word for it. Now you do. But I am not here to hand you a label and walk away. I am here because I think I understand something about you that the people around you never did. So, let me show you what your childhood actually looked like. Not the photos on the wall. The real thing. You were small, and the world above you was not steady. Maybe a parent carried a sadness so heavy it filled the whole house. You could feel it through the walls. Maybe there was anger, and you learned to sense it long before it ever arrived. Maybe they were simply gone. Tired, distant, somewhere far away, even while sitting right beside you. So you did what a child does when no one above them is steady. You became steady yourself. You watched their face for the first change in the weather. You made yourself smaller, quieter, easier, so you would never be one more thing for them to carry. You became the one who asked, "Are you okay?" when nobody was asking it of you. Maybe you still remember a specific night. You were far too young, sitting beside a grown-up who was crying, patting their back, telling them everything would be all right. You didn't know if it would be. But you said it anyway, because they needed to hear it. And you were the only one there. Maybe you were the translator between two people who couldn't speak to each other, without you in the middle. Maybe you helped raise your own brothers and sisters while you were still a child yourself. Maybe you lay awake at night, listening, waiting for the house to finally go quiet, before you let yourself sleep. A child is supposed to be allowed to fall apart and trust that someone bigger will catch them. You were never given that. So you did the only thing you could. You stopped falling apart, and you became the one who catches. I know how this sounds from the outside. People think a responsible child is a gift, a blessing, so mature, so helpful. But no one ever asks what it costs a child to become an adult before they are ready. It costs them their softness, their spontaneity, the simple, ordinary right to be looked after. And you paid that price quietly, for years, and never once handed anyone the bill. Now here is the first thing I need you to understand. And I want you to really hear it. You did not become responsible because something was wrong with you. You became responsible because it kept you safe. When you were useful, the house was calmer. When you saw the trouble coming, you could make it smaller. When you carried the feelings of the adults, there was a little more peace for everyone to breathe. So, your nervous system, still forming, learned a rule. Being needed is how I earn my place. Being easy is how I stay safe. That was not a character flaw. That was survival. That was a brilliant, frightened child doing whatever it took to keep their world from falling apart. You should feel proud of that child, not ashamed of them. And if you are starting to recognize yourself right now, I want you to do something for me. Tell me in the comments. How old were you when you stopped being a kid? Just the number. Because I think it will help you to see how many other people are quietly typing the same thing. You were never as alone in this as you felt. Take a moment and let that land. In this very sentence, thousands of people are recognizing the same childhood they thought only they had. You were never the only one holding the house up. You just felt like it. Here is the hard part. That rule you learned did not disappear when you grew up. It just changed its clothes. Now you are the friend everyone leans on. The one they call when their world is falling apart. You are the one at work who quietly fixes what other people drop and never says a word about it. You are the partner who feels the mood in the room before anyone has spoken. People call you dependable, solid, strong, low maintenance, and not one of them sees the child still underneath it all. Still scanning the room. Still trying to keep everyone from falling. So how do you know this is really you? Look at the small things, the ones you have never questioned. You feel guilty when you rest. As if rest is something you have to earn first, and you never quite earn enough. You go stiff when someone tries to take care of you. You will give help 100 times before you let yourself receive it once. Because receiving feels like a debt, and you have spent your whole life trying not to owe anyone anything. You take on more than is yours, and then you feel it. A quiet, lonely resentment you would never say out loud, because no one ever taught you how to say, "This is not mine to carry." You apologize for things that were never your fault. You say sorry for being tired. Sorry for needing. Sorry for taking up space. And here is a quiet one. You don't always know what you feel. You can read everyone else's emotions perfectly. But when someone asks how you are, you go blank. Because your whole life, your attention faced outward. You learned everyone else's weather and never your own. You are fiercely, painfully independent. Your first instinct, in almost any situation, is the same. It's fine. I'll just do it myself. Because depending on someone once meant being let down. And you decided, very young, that it was safer to need no one at all. And you are tired. Tired in a way that sleep does not touch. Because your body has been standing guard so long it forgot how to stand down. You see it at work, too. You are the one who stays late to fix what was never yours to fix. You absorb the stress of the whole team, and you call it being reliable. You burn out in private, and the next morning you show up with the same steady face. Because the steady face is the only one you were ever allowed to wear. And with your friends, you are everyone's safe place. The one they call at midnight, the one who always knows what to say. But on your own worst nights, you scroll through that same list of names, and you realize there is no one on it you would let see you fall apart. You never really learned how to just be present. Part of you is always one step ahead, scanning for the next problem, the next mood, the next thing that might need fixing. You can be on a holiday you waited all year for, and still feel a quiet hum of tension you cannot switch off. Because rest, to you, has always felt like dropping your guard. And dropping your guard was never safe. Now I need to tell you the part that is hardest to say out loud. The strength that saved you as a child is the very thing keeping you alone as an adult. Because somewhere back there, you learned that love had a price. You had to be useful to be wanted. You had to be easy to be kept. So now, in a place far beneath your thoughts, you do not quite believe that someone could love you when you are not holding anything, when you are not fixing, when you are not strong, when you are just tired and human and yours. And so, without ever meaning to, you keep choosing the people who need you, the ones who take, and never once ask how you are. Because being needed feels like home, and being simply loved for nothing, just because you exist, feels like a language you were never taught. You can spend a whole life being the safe place for everyone else, and never once get to stand under a roof of your own. And underneath even that, there is a fear you have never said out loud. That if you put it down, even for a moment, everything will fall apart, and it will be your fault. So you never put it down. But I want you to hear this, gently. That fear is not the truth. It is a memory. It is the voice of a small child who once truly believed the whole world stayed standing only because they held it up. That child was wrong. It was never all on you. And it still isn't. If your chest feels tight right now, I want you to pause for just a second and breathe. None of this means you are broken. It means you survived something, and you are only now beginning to notice what it cost you. That noticing is not weakness. It is the very first moment this begins to loosen its grip. There is a grief here that most people never let themselves feel. Grief for the childhood you did not get. The years you spent being careful, when you should have been allowed to be careless. You are allowed to mourn that. And maybe, underneath the grief, there is an anger you have never let yourself touch. Not at the people who couldn't be there. You have spent your whole life making excuses for them. But at the unfairness of it. That so much was asked of someone so small. You are allowed to feel that too. It does not make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. And honesty is where this finally starts to heal. So slow down with me for a moment. Take a breath. This part matters. That child did nothing wrong. A small person looked at something far too big for them and chose to carry it anyway, so that someone they loved could hurt a little less. That is not weakness. That is one of the bravest things a human being can do. But here is the truth you have waited your whole life to hear. You are not on duty anymore. The house is quiet now. The danger you spent years bracing against ended a long time ago. And the only one still asking you to carry everything is that frightened child inside you, who never got the message that it was finally over. So let me say it to them now, to the child still living inside you. You can rest. Someone else can hold it. You did enough. You were always enough. So how do you begin to set it down? Not all at once. Gently, the way you have done everything. In small, honest steps. First, untangle two things you have always kept knotted together. Responsibility and love. You were taught that you have to earn love by being useful. That was never true. It was a survival rule, not a fact about who you are. Next, practice receiving. Let someone help you with something small. Let them carry the bag. Let them check on you. Notice how uncomfortable it feels. And let it be uncomfortable. You do not have to pay it back. That is what care is. It was never alone. Then, the first time you truly let yourself rest, the guilt will come. The old voice will ask what you have done to earn it. Do not obey it. Sit inside the discomfort and rest anyway. You are teaching your body a new truth, that you are allowed to exist even when you are not producing anything. Then, ask yourself a question you may never have asked. Not, what do they need from me? But, what do I want? The answer may be silence at first. That is okay. You are learning a language you were never taught. Ask it gently, every day, until your own voice begins to answer. Then, let yourself be small sometimes. You do not always have to be the one with the answers. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to fall apart and let someone else be strong for a while. The world will not collapse because you set it down for one evening. It was never truly yours to hold up in the first place. And the hardest one, let someone see the part of you that is still scared, not the strong one, the real one. Because you were the child no one came home to, and the way that finally heals is by letting someone come home to you. It will feel terrifying the first time, letting yourself be held after a lifetime of being the one who holds. Do it anyway. Start with one person. Start with one sentence. I'm tired. Can you stay? And let them stay. If you have carried more than your share for as long as you can remember, I want you to hear me clearly. I see you. You do not have to be the strong one tonight. You were never too much. You were a child who loved very deeply, in a world that asked far too much of you, far too soon. And it is safe to set it down now. If this reached you, leave that number in the comments. The age you were when you stopped being a kid. And if someone you love has always been the strong one, the fixer, the one who holds everyone together, send this to them tonight. Maybe it is finally their turn to be held. Take a breath. You are allowed to put it down. You are allowed to be held. This is Blissful Journey.